Publication 17 covers the general rules for filing a federal income tax return. It supplements the information contained in your tax form instruction booklet. It explains the tax law to make sure you pay only the tax you owe and no more. By filing information returns, businesses must tell the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, about payments made for work performed. The type of information return used for this purpose depends on the nature of the service provider, as an employee or independent contractor. The party required to file the information return is the business for which the work is performed. These forms enable the IRS to be sure that service providers are correctly reporting employee income and that the company is paying employment taxes for service providers who are employees. What's the difference between 1099 and W-2 forms? The main difference between the Form 1099 and W-2 is primarily what's entered on it. The 1099 NEC is solely for payments to independent contractors. No tax payments are reported on this form. The W-2 is a more comprehensive information return, listing not only taxable compensation to employees but also federal, and, where required, state, income tax and federal insurance contributions act, FICA, withholding, salary reduction amounts for contributions to 401k plans and specific other employee benefit plans, and other withholding, e.g., for state disability benefits in certain states, or paid family medical leave benefits in certain states, including various employee benefits, e.g., health coverage, group term life insurance, and dependent care assistance. Wages and other payments to employees are reported on Form W-2, while payments to independent contractors are reported on Form 1099 NEC. To file the appropriate form, each business must classify its workers as employees or independent contractors. From an employer's perspective, using independent contractors can be less costly than employees. The savings come from not having to pay employment taxes for independent contractors and provide them with benefits. There are also savings in administrative costs. However, worker classification is not simply a matter of choice. For federal tax purposes, a worker is an employee and can't be treated as an independent contractor if the company exercises sufficient control over when, where, and how the work is done. More specifically, the IRS has specific behavioral, financial, and relational tests that decide when a worker is an employee for taxation purposes. In contrast, independent contractors are essentially workers in business for themselves. They generally control when and how their work is accomplished, use their own tools and equipment, and risk profit or loss on each assignment. What is a 1099 tax form? A 1099 form is an annual information return listing the gross amount of payments made to an independent contractor during the calendar year. If payments to an independent contractor during the calendar year totaled $600 or more, the business for whom services were performed must file it. However, it can be filed even if payments are less. What is a 1099 worker? A 1099 worker is often called an independent contractor, a type of worker who contracts their services to a business. As we'll discuss later, businesses must carefully classify their workers correctly. So, while it's best practice to consult an HR advisor or legal counsel to ensure proper classification, here are some examples of types of workers who would receive a 1099 form. Examples of 1099 workers. A consultant brought in for a set amount of time to complete a project. A freelance web developer who works on a per-assignment basis and uses their own computer. An electrician contracted 3 times throughout the year to repair power outages in an office building. How to fill out a 1099 NEC form. Completing a 1099 NEC form for contractors is relatively simple. Fill out Form 1099 with the name, address, and total amount paid to your contractor. You will need the following information about your contractor from the contractor's Form W-9. O legal name. O business name. O personal address. O social security number or taxpayer identification number. O payment details from the past tax year. File copy with the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, by the deadline. Send copy B to your contractor. Keep copy C for your business's records. What other forms do you need when working with independent contractors? Form 1099 isn't the only form you need on hand to properly pay and tax your contractors. What is a W-2 tax form? Form W-2 is an annual information return provided to an employee listing taxable wages and income tax withholding and withholding of Social Security and Medicare taxes. The form also lists various employee benefits, some taxable, some tax-free, and state income tax withholding. It must be filed by the employer for each employee, regardless of the amount of compensation paid during the year. What is a W-2 employee? In terms of taxes, a W-2 employee is an individual who is paid through their employer's payroll and has their payroll taxes withheld throughout the year. By January 31st, the W-2 employee receives a Form W-2 that includes information about taxable compensation, tax withholdings, and any additional tax deductions for employee benefits such as employer-sponsored health coverage or 401k plans from the prior year. The W-2 employee then uses this information to complete their yearly taxes. Here are some examples of employees who would receive a Form W-2. Examples of W-2 employees: an office worker with scheduled hours, ongoing work, a company-issued laptop, and a direct supervisor. A warehouse supervisor who has scheduled hours each week and receives periodic training. An administrative assistant who must be in the office from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., has set responsibilities, and receives health insurance through an employer-sponsored medical plan. How to fill out a Form W-2. If you're wondering how to fill out a W-2 manually and what each box on the form refers to, look no further. Employee Social Security Number, SSN. Employer Identification Number, EIN. Employer name, address, and zip code. Control number. Needs to leave this box blank if the business doesn't use control numbers. Employee name, address, and zip code. Wages, tips, other compensation filed refers to the total amount business/employer paid to the employee during the year. It is subject to federal income tax. It does not include pre-tax retirement contributions, health insurance premiums, and other pre-tax employee benefits. And other information. Can an individual get both a W-2 and a 1099? Sometimes, the same person can receive a 1099 and a W-2. For example, suppose an individual who is an officer and employee of a corporation also serves on the board of directors. In that case, this person may receive a W-2 for employee compensation and a 1099 for fees received as a corporate director, a non-employee position. How to file W-2 forms. Companies' responsibilities for filing W-2s are twofold: providing originals to the workers and transmitting copies to the government. Be sure to follow the rules for furnishing workers with their forms. For example, an employer can send an employee their W-2 electronically instead of mailing or handing it to the employee, provided there is prior consent to this. Consent should be electronic to ensure that the employee can access the W-2 when sent. If the company has 250 or more W-2s, they must be transmitted to the SSA electronically. However, a smaller employer may choose to do so to save time and ensure accuracy. The copies must be accompanied by Form W-3. If electronic filing is not used, copies with a transmittal form must be mailed to the SSA. How to file 1099 forms. For 1099s, forms can be sent electronically to independent contractors if they consent to receive them. If the company has 10 or more 1099s, they must be TRA.